Can I have your water? Yeah. I'm actually really thirsty.
To the LEC post-game lobby after week 5 of the spring split. Now I'm Drakos, joined by Froskurinn, Vitality's coach YamatoCannon, and the Moose on the loose, Martin Deficio, who is going to be insufferable for this entire segment.
First
let him have
the
it.
question. Who voted for Origin to beat G2? Not you. Not you. Definitely not you. I did. There's even a tweet an hour ago when they asked the experts saying, what does it take to take down G2 Esports? Well, and I replied in one word, Origin.
Are you good?
Go retweet that,
Can you take a break? Just
Go retweet
Are you good? We'll get to that again.
Okay,
I promise. I'll give you another chance. You're good? All right. Well, Origin did pull off a massive upset, and I do want to talk about it from perspectives other than Deficio's bloated ego. Yamato, how did you feel about the game?
I think fantastic game from Origin. I think they've been stepping up. I think they're showing what they are capable of. Finally, there was some rough couple of early weeks. I think the draft was such a new scenario. We saw Zed, and I think if you look back and in hindsight, I think G2 is telling themselves if we ban Zed's second wave, all of a sudden this doesn't happen. They don't have an AD choice for mid, and all of a sudden it's a different game.
I think that was one of the most interesting things that you said when we did have a chance to talk backstage. It's like, how many times can Origin actually get away with a draft like this? Because now that they've revealed it, it seems so easy to counter out or maneuver around it. But it was an incredible Nuke performance. Signature pick, one of his Zeds. But I don't think you can get away with this one again.
I can definitely tell you, Jankos absolutely hates to play against Nuke Zed. Because he did the same thing in Summer Split when Jankos was on Gragas. He died like 5 times in the early game. This one, Nuke also managed to get a pick on him early. And generally, like when you see stuff like that, then you get really, really proud of your mid laner.
It's the Lemon Dogs Nuke Duck. The Zed is back.
Now OG.
Now OG Nuke Duck. Previously Schalke, he's been Vitality, he's been a lot of places. Now on OG, now taking down the otherwise undefeated G2. And once again, I kind of want to go back to you, Yamato. Does this breathe hope into the chances of beating G2 in the future? Do you think all the other teams in the league are now like, we have a shot, we can do it?
I think there was always hope. I think if you are in the league and like if us or OG or Schalke were in the mindset, oh, we will not beat G2, like we're not then top teams. We always saw the hope, we always saw the potential in ourselves, and I don't think this changes one bit.
All right, good. I like the smile on the face, too. Of course, I think no surprises that our key player of the game is Nuke Duck. 90% of the votes, a humble majority, you could definitely say it, and definitely a dominant performance. Was there a single moment, Froskurinn, that stood out to you in the game where you're like, OG have clinched this, that like you knew that they were going to win?
I had to pee really bad. I went, and then I came back in, and I saw that Caps had died, and Nuke had the kill. And I looked at Yamato, and I go, what happened? And he goes, solo killed Caps. I was like, oh, I think this is over, boys.
That's not supposed to happen.
I mean, so the setup obviously was cold because there's Cassiopeia in the early game, right? So there's nothing she can do to escape. Like, she gets walled by Karthus. So he actually ganked pre-level 6 from Zed. Force the flash away from Caps, and then when it's level 6 to level 5 and Caps is back in lane, Nuke just flashes, you know? Like, obviously he still has to hit everything in the combo, but it kind of set up a super nice solo kill. It's all about pulling the trigger there, which he did. So that was really cool to see. Obviously kind of the try and force flash, get level advantage, then use it the moment you actually have the level up.
Is Nuke ever going back on Malzahar duty after this game?
Please no.
You gotta ask Andre about that one. That's for him to decide. I think the Malzahar had its moments.
I like the Malzahar.
I mean,
Vitality special back in the day.
It felt decent sometimes, but for now, I really like when Nuke kind of gets free reign as well, because he plays everything right, and you just gotta trust him. If he goes like, "Hey, this is a good matchup," don't say, "Nah, Nuke, what do you know?" Just be like, sounds like a great matchup, you know? And then he gets to play things like that.
I feel like Manager Deficio is a lot more hands-off than Analyst Deficio. I feel like back in the day, you would have asked, like, how does it work, Nuke? Like, tell me how this matchup works. How are you going to win it? But I like the, all right, dude, just, you know, do whatever.
I mean, it's a discussion you lose very quickly now. If you're, like, the general manager and like, are you sure about Zed here? What about this? Like, dude.
What's your title?
Did you read
what
the
rank are you right now? You're like, yeah, okay, you're good point, Nuke. There you go. But I mean, he fights a little bit with Andre in a good way about like all the different picks, and in the end, I think everyone trusts him. And then again, he gets to play Zed.
Yeah, it was a good look. Well, despite the loss to Origin, G2 are still in first place, followed by Shock and No Fear and Vitality in second. Origin obviously rising up the standings, but Vitality, the victory over Shock was so dominant. We heard from Jack Troll earlier. I do want to ask you, how are you feeling now, Yamato, after this game? It was a super up and down week for you guys.
I think it was a fantastic week, considering our game yesterday was the worst game we played in the history of this alteration of Vitality.
How much did you yell?
I yelled a lot. But I do tactical yelling. I don't yell without reason.
How angry was Dad?
Well, it worked. It worked. Today we delivered big time, and I'm super proud.
What's the secret to yelling? Do you only yell negative stuff, or do you sometimes try and get some hype?
He can't give you this. You don't have to answer this. Don't give him his secret strats.
As a former broadcaster, I'm allowed to ask this question.
You are not under any pressure to answer that question.
I know. Don't worry. But I can answer a little bit. I think it depends on what people you deal with. Like in the manager role, in the coaching role, we deal with people, and people are unique in their own sense, and you have to choose how you yell, very tactfully.
You're like to one guy in some way, change it for another guy. Yeah.
You get the screaming. You get the soft voice.
It's called the stick and the carrot. Some players need the carrot.
Ooh, get the stick as well. And of course, one thing that's important to note that hasn't necessarily been as crucial in the past, or let's say is more crucial than ever, is securing a top 2 spot. Right? In the past, it was the buy in the semifinals. Now it's basically you can lose a best of 5 in playoffs and still be in and still be contending for the top. You guys are both now, Origin, maybe not earlier today, but after beating G2, definitely in the discussion for top 2. Vitality have been there. How important do you feel like that top 2 spot is right now?
Oof, super important. I think the fact that you get a break matters a lot. You get to see everyone play, but then the negative side is that maybe playing a lot of best of 5s is healthy in Spring Split, because playing those best of 5s with the new roster is also fantastic, so it's hard to judge. But I think getting that information is really crucial.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you're obviously at least guaranteed 2 BO5s, because if you do lose the winners or the 1-2 game, you obviously have to play whoever's the winner of the quarterfinal bracket. So you technically do now get actually more BO5s guaranteed compared to before. If you just lost in a semi, you had that kind of meaningless spring third place game that's now gone. So I think this is a really good thing. Obviously, also if you do get top 2, I guess facing the other top team initially could be really helpful as well, because you do get to play BO5, and if you do lose it, there's a lot of games you can go in and watch and figure out what do we need to change for next time. As long as the team doesn't actually, take a bit of a dip after losing that potential BO5, then going into obviously the next game. But I like the format quite a lot. It just sucks you only have 1 day to prep for the final.
Yeah.
If you do take the loser side.
That's a rough one.
That is it's gonna be a long night in a hotel somewhere trying to figure out what to do within like 24 hours.
Froskurinn, how are you feeling about the playoffs right now? I know it's still pretty early. We still have a few more weeks to go, but we do have a top 6 here. Do you think these are the teams that are going to be locked in?
We're not supposed to use that dirty word, playoff word, like week 5. I mean, I still have faith that Misfits will get it together. The only question for me right now is like, to what extent do SK and Fnatic continue to climb? I actually feel that Splice has stalled out. I've given them a couple of games on the tape, and I'm just not liking what I'm seeing. It kind of feels like they're a bit lost, and they just don't have what it takes. I think they'll definitely make it into playoffs, but I don't think they're going to have a very far drive. So the question marks for me are Misfits, SK, and Fnatic.
Well, a lot of the reasons that you have maybe some question marks around Misfits are their game today, where Rogue secured their first win against Misfits Gaming. Now, we all got to witness it happen. Panel of guests.
I didn't see it. What happened?
Kickers played Pantheon jungle.
Pantheon, man. He got the
Pantheon
first
got
blood.
some work done. I would say in that game, Hikyu outclassed Hansama, which is not something that I thought I would say, but was the better AD carry in the end. There was a roll. I'm going to be honest. I still don't believe it. And it happened. And I want to give praise to Rogue. Rogue looked good in the game. Definitely were the better team on the day. But Froskurinn, Yamato didn't get to watch it happen. I know you did. We were talking about it together. So run me through it. Like, what actually happened here? How did this happen?
I mean, I think the main takeaway is that when we make a substitution, or when Rogue make a substitution like what did and Prophet, immediately alarm bells start sounding. You're like, those are not the problem players on this roster right now. Prophet was probably one of your best performing players. But Vander has made a significant difference. And, we're not listening to the comms. We can't really tell what's happening here. But you can see Vander in every single play, constantly first on the rotation, constantly leading the charge. And I think that's your primary takeaway, that Vander was the right choice. I'm not sure about Finn on the Urgot. I think Urgot can really band-aid a lot of top laners, like can boost them up, make them look godly. So I need more tape of Finn. But so far, I'm all aboard the Vander Rogue hype train. I think that was the right move.
I think ignoring names who join the team sometimes when you're in a rough spot, it can be a bad week, it can be a bad, split. You just need a change somewhere that hopefully just kind of removes some negative thoughts, brings in a few hopeful ones. You're like, okay, now some things are feeling a little bit better. And then you go into play and then, you just hope that at least one of the games are successful. And then it feels like the change was the reason, even if you're not necessarily a stronger team on paper, just player for player. And it doesn't have to be roster changes. It can be a lot of different things. In our case, after week 3, I believe it was, or week 2 when we went 0-2. We made a few changes to our schedule, and the players kind of got motivated because we made a change, and then it started kind of a positive snowball that seemed to then kind of continue. And for Rogue, I mean, hearing Kikis in his interview, he didn't say, "Oh, we just got way better players now. Profit sucks. Finn is so good." He was more like, "This change, we just needed something." And you know what? This version of this team, it felt nice or something. And then, now we won a game. So now these guys are for sure going to be like, hey, it's awesome. The change was really great. Let's keep going.
Yeah. I would like to add, I think, to your point, is making one small change could be the difference of showcasing all the things you're good at. Sometimes it's like if you're cooking, missing salt or herbs or spices might make everything taste bad. Yesterday, we had one missing element that I'm not going to mention, but we had one missing element that made the difference. It was salt, yeah. It was the difference between our performance today and also yesterday. And it's all about finding that right thing and making everyone believe in the idea of that change making wonders. So I think that's what happened for Rogue.
Mm-hmm. I mean, good to see the progress for them. And for Misfits, I think it puts them in a really tough position, falling from grace very, very quickly.
I just don't understand them. Like, whenever you watch them play, it's just very uncoordinated. And it feels like if they don't get a couple of early kills, just sometimes a little bit lucky, other times like a 2v2 outplay or something, you're just kind of sitting there waiting for a play to happen, and the enemy team is always doing it first. So it's really strange. Because when you look at the names, and I'm not talking about skill, I'm more talking about experience and kind of roles they've had on teams in the past. Gorilla has always been a massive shot caller, a very vocal player, back in the LCK. Maxlaw is famous for his early game shot calling and dictating the pace of what's happening on his teams. Soaz, of course, a lot of the same with shot calling experience, or at least communication used to be top tier. Coordination, or at least comms, should be the least of their problems. Yet, to me, that actually feels right now like the biggest problem.
For me, it feels like it's a bad read on priority and draft as well. There's some wonky drafts, and Misfits have had really unique drafts. I feel like they had like 3 weeks where they had like super creative drafts, and it felt really good. And now it just seems very disjointed and very scattered in what they're trying to grab, what their priorities are, and then how to execute on the win conditions once they have their compositions assembled.
I think when it comes to Misfits as well, is I think Soaz can play every champion very well. But I think what they're lacking is post-early game, unless they can dive people and just run them over. I think they are struggling on the side of making decisive moves. And I think if the meta was different, where Soaz was playing Sion and Ornn every game, then I think Misfits would be a great team at this point. But right now, I think Misfits is showing the same characteristics as they do almost every year. They start off, they have these early game where they pop off. Even watching their games, the games they got leads in bot lane were always very, very silly. I remember the game against you guys. Yeah. It was like Tamkench not pressing E, and then they got the lead and they snowballed. And in other games, it was something similar to that. So I didn't ever really believe in the idea of Misfits being like some super team. I think they have a fantastic roster. I think they're just not meshing, and it's similar to problems they've had in the past.
It's definitely something they need to sort out very quickly if they want to make a playoffs run, if they want to rise up. Well, we'll check in on Misfits in the weeks to come. But throughout the day, you guys have been sending us your questions for the experts. Let's check out some of your pings, starting with this one from Ponchi. Now, I'm blind, so I can't read this, so I'm going to move over here. Apologies to you at home. Do you agree that having a sports psychologist is a must these days? I was surprised Fnatic didn't have one until like a week or two. So sports psychology, just moments ago, you guys were talking a lot about kind of the importance of mentality and how one little thing can shift it. Is this something that, for you guys specifically, that you put a lot of value in, is having someone there who can coach mentality, a sports psychologist, someone like that on the roster?
For sure. I think it's absolutely necessary. I think, you know, in the past, there was so much focus on gameplay, or play this champion better, or we lost the game. It's because you suck, nothing else. I think transferring on stage performance and talking about how you play in scrims onto stage, there's so many issues, and all of them come from mindset. It's such a brain-oriented game. If your mind is in the wrong place, then nothing, no matter how good you are, nothing's going to work. On our end, we don't have a sports psychologist, but I've done my own research and I tried to build our culture in a very specific way. Even though we don't have a sports psychologist, I put a lot of emphasis on the idea of it.
I think, yeah, it's super important. I do want to add super early on to this that finding a good one that clicks with the team obviously is kind of the key, because if you have a bad sports psychologist, or you have someone who doesn't click with the team, doesn't really understand, you know, maybe the difference between whatever that person did before and now esports or like young gamers.
That's why I do it.
Then you can have a lot of problems that it can actually really ruin a lot of things. But if you do end up having, in our case, we have almost like a sports psychologist team. We have Fabian, who obviously came over from Schalke, who's with the guys all the time. We then also have another sports psychologist who's not with the guys all the time, but will have like weekly meetings and always be available for you know, chats if people need to call. And then we actually have a third guy who's not a sports psychologist, but he's a former athlete who knows a lot about being in the moment and kind of playing under pressure and so
we
on.
have a fourth guy who will rub your feet and bring you Subway. Man, Refresh is treating you good.
The fourth guy is me, and I'm just in the back being like, hey, you guys can do it. No,
Well, your fourth guy is Deficio. That's how you know you've made it.
we have different people who focus on different things, but we felt like it was really important to have someone like Fabian who's there all the time. So he, in a way, kind of becomes the big brother who is always available if you need anything and can very quickly solve, you know, in the moment things. And then obviously have also even more experienced people with different backgrounds available and behind the team. So I think, yes, it is definitely a great thing to have. But please, if you have a bad one or one that your players don't want to talk to, then you got to get rid of that person very quickly, because it will actually end up hurting you a lot more.
I've seen that a lot.
It emphasizes the idea of synergy, not just with like the psychologist and like the mental aspect of the game, but also those intangibles. You know, if you plug in a guy like Vander, if you insert new players, it brings in that new morale, and that's basically what this all comes down to. It can't just always be about this guy can press his buttons better on the day. It's, well, does he have the confidence to actually press his buttons better on the day?
Well, I'm glad to hear that teams are like continuing to invest in this and valuing so much mental health of players. I mean, there's like realistically, there's just so many young people in our league that like having someone there to like look out for these guys, to make sure they're performing well, to make sure that they're doing all right, seems like it's just really good for the health of the sport overall. I
mean, and that's, YamatoCannon said it already, you know, in the past it was like we lost because someone sucked and that's it. But it's crazy how many things just day to day that can actually kind of be worked on. Tiny things versus huge things. Mindset of when you go into a scrim, you know, like how serious do you take this? It was something in the past where a lot of teams would just kind of goof around in scrims, surrender 10 minutes if they lost some, or 15 minutes or whatever. That stuff you can work on. Then there's generally dealing with pressure, because I think that's the biggest thing that, you know, when I was a caster, I always ignored that. I'm like, oh, this player on stage, he looked bad, so he must be a bad player. But like the pressure when you sit there and you have to perform in the moment for your team, for your organization and everything, like that's kind of crazy. And it's really hard to get yourself in the mindset of these players. And that's where, again, sports psychologists or great staff can really unlock that and make a player way better than maybe he was before.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, moving on forward from this, fantastic insight. Thank you very much. Next, at Megalodontus asks, what would it take to beat G2?
Show the reply. There is the reply.
Deficio responded.
10 likes is an insult. That better have 1,000 likes when we're done here.
Wow, you're...
Smash that like button.
Smash that like. Subscribe.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
It's Deficio. Now, all right, Deficio, do you remember the Nuke Duck rap?
I do remember.
Do you remember
Nuke Duck rap.
the specific instance of a champion?
Is
that we
this a
may have
live
referenced?
rendition? I can get the cowbell. It's next door.
I believe we have the clip. Production. Can you give me the throwback clip?
Now you're looking on stage and he's hovering Z. Wait for that death mark, boy, but you're already dead.
We actually
No
only
bread,
did it for you,
please, 'cause
Drakos.
he's
It was-
already fed. That's the way it goes, son. Just get out of your
I'm
head.
glad we continued to roll this into vegan.
Just keep it there.
The best part. That's my WhatsApp picture, by the way, gangster stuff. So I just want to say that we predicted that years in advance.
Yes.
That's no, I don't know why I chose to do this because there's no way for either of you to follow up on what is probably the worst thing I've ever done, putting that on this broadcast.
You just like really had to shoehorn your own
I
ego
was
into
like,
that one.
Let's go. You have to piggyback on this
You
moment.
got better
for
at
Deficio.
rapping for the second one.
We
did.
definitely did. We were pretty rough in the first one.
Yeah, well, to be fair, also the first one we had to do it in like 30 minutes because we had that story meet or
Oh,
something.
that's true, yeah.
And they were like getting pissed because we weren't there. We were like, we just got into suits. We're not getting out of the suits again, and we have the green screen today, and we have to do
We
it
still
now.
have the duck suit. I almost wanted to get you to wear it, but you're already wearing my pants, so I thought it'd be a little too much.
These are nice pants.
look
I might
good.
keep them.
All right, well, let's check out our Kia Player of the Game leaderboard as our next thing, voted for by the LEC fans on Twitter. Now, it's important to note in the event of ties, the players receive the highest percentage of votes will come out on top. But now, after today, my dear friends, Selfmade remains at the top. Despite other SK players playing really well, the SK fan base is determined to make sure that Selfmade wins every time.
But that's not why it's just like, yeah, Selfmade wins it every single time SK win a game, but they don't have as many wins as all of these other teams. And so that's what's so impressive. It's the fact that he gets it every time, and he's on like the, what, 6th place team right now?
Yeah, 5 wins.
5 wins?
5 and 5, I believe.
And he's got all
to go to
5 of them.
Selfmade.
Yeah.
Guy's a god.
Is that the only Jizuka picture where he's not smiling? In the world?
Probably, yes.
That's impressive.
We need him to look
take a
very
lot.
Smiling on the
serious.
inside.
He's literally always smiling. We probably just tried to sneak this one, you know? You couldn't just tell him to take a picture.
Wait, so jungler, mid laner, mid laner, mid laner.
I think I see a pattern.
Production has confirmed this is the only picture he's not smiling in, by the way. They thought that was the good one to
Can we
confirm
fix
on.
it?
But yeah, does this tell us a little something about the state?
Yes!
That's the stuff. Thank you.
You guys are the best behind the scenes. Yanko's in second, Nuke Duck in third, but you're right, jungler and mid laner. Does this tell anything about the state of our league? Or
What a
is this...
softball question.
Yeah.
Boo!
Don't boo me!
Yes.
Yeah, lazy voters.
It's mid jungle. They've always had the most priority over the map. They've always been the most important roles. I think it's clear that that's why, FLICKR, not just because of how good he is, but the fact that he's also a mid laner. Would he have been FLICKR if he wasn't a mid laner? It's always been the most
Would have
important.
been bang. He'd be playing 100 Thieves. Oof.
I think of it like this. So mid and jungle, those are the roles that roam to the other lanes. And we have 3 other roles. So there are 3 other roles that are pissed at mid and junglers. they get carried, mid roamed. So that's 60% of the player base is voting on mid and junglers. But jokes aside, mid and jungle is super important in the current meta, and it always will be.
Always. I feel like Kabashot should have been on that. Is he just outside or something?
I'm actually not 100% sure.
I feel like he had like quite a lot of games where he carried hard.
He's
from
actually
top.
smurfing.
Yeah, let's just be clear. If anyone is doubting this season, a quick praise to Cabo Shard, because I don't know if we get a chance to say it enough. We said it earlier today in our pregame segment.
He is hard
this
smurfing.
is the best season I've seen from Cabo in a long time. So shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out to Cub. He deserves it.
Absolutely. Well, after an action-filled week, it's time to check out the highlights on our Alienware big plays. First up, there was no place to hide. I have to pause there. You know that. Don't mock me. You already threw a bottle at me. First up, there was no place to hide for Vitality against Selfmade yesterday as he led SK to a dominating victory on the Lee Sin. I'm sorry, Yamato.
Let's enjoy this one.
Going forward, Attila going to kick it back right as he sees it. Clean play, waits for the Black Shield, and then just instantly commits to the Morgana.
Or Mowgli and Jizuke would then try to have a party up on the top side and split them out.
Mowgli pulled back. They're going to try to burst him down. It looks like they are going to be able to get it. The kick, not going to be necessary. When they need to make smarter, cleaner macro plays, it might not matter because Mowgli's just going to get solo killed. Kicks him, follows him over the wall. The flash out, and they're going to back off, but in comes Dreams. Rocket just goes a little bit wide. Attila has to be careful here. Selfmade. Not going to go for the aggressive play on the Sonic Wave. Vitality getting what they can, but still losing the inhibitor. Selfmade going for the play. Oh! Woo! Is this man playing solo queue or LEC?
That's all.
I got get nice.
Nice.
That's great.
I'm sorry, Yamato.
That's great,
I
Yamato.
didn't know you were going to be here, to be fair, at the time we requested that.
It's a scar that we wear proudly.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, turned around today. I feel like you feel good about that one. Well, yesterday, both Ignar and Cold threw an explosive cast into the opposition with some sick Gragas plays. Origin Jungle even brought out the Arctic Op skin to get that ice in the belly.
Splash, Q, W, Ignite! It's not quite enough to kill, but here comes Cold, flashes in, and Cold will belly bump his way to second kill of the game.
Maybe I can kill? Yeah, no flash is dead actually. He's inting so hard.
Nice.
I still have my flash too.
He used both sums.
Yeah.
They have LeBlanc and they have Yorick. Very strong laners.
Kadril's still down here, will be spotted on a ward. Cold and Mythic turn away straight away. Kissing coming in from the side as well, but the hook onto Kadril, knocked back. That's an easy enough kill. And now Expect teleported in.
And it guarantees them another tower.
And now in the top lane, Cold here once again. Cold is unstoppable. That Gragas is doing absolute work. Flash in from Patrick, going very aggressive. The hook lands onto Expect. Pulling back, there's the Ignite as well. Patrick can put the boomerang down, and Cold, his 7th kill of the game.
Deficio, your jungler, threw a lot of good casts yesterday. How are you feeling about Cold right now?
He's really, really good.
I did a segment on him this morning.
And I'm going to go home and I'm going to watch that segment.
Perfect.
Because I'm sure whatever you said was spot on towards his current performance.
I think that's the nicest thing Deficio has ever said to me. I actually
It's
just
not
which
true.
is
I only
crazy.
praise you. Vedis is the one I criticize.
He's actually probably
That is
stopped what he
always
was
the
doing
problem.
backstage. He's like, damn it, Dad doesn't love me anymore.
All right, Vedius is always the problem. Some good insight snuck in there from YamatoCannon. I like that one. We'll keep that one. Well, finally, earlier today, Vitality bounced back with a massive
fine, you get this.
performance, getting their revenge on their rivals, Schalke No Fear.
Talking about eager opportunities, Memento and Mowgli find themselves in the mid lane. That's a very good dash away as Memento's able to escape. The stun comes down. Sanguine Pool will buy some time as Shizuke is getting burnt. Abatage manages to pick up the kill. There's only the second one on the cards. Mowgli goes down. Golden Aegis buys a few more seconds. Mowgli goes to back around. That's a double kill secured. 2 for Vitality.
Oh, they're staying. 1 round. Over 2. Oh, man. Oh, no.
They have ward here. No, they will let you.
I'll be fine. Ah, never mind. Can you run? Oh my god.
Cancel.
Oli? Yes!
Nice.
Nice, guys, nice.
No flash or.
No flash all. Okay, good.
Good job, Molly.
Mowgli, listen, focus. We need to build vision, okay?
Yeah.
To G2 Esports for now. Vitality up 7 or 8k. They're not done yet. Mowgli dancing on the edge of safety. This time around, we'll need to use that stopwatch to stay alive. Memento will get dunked down. Killer Instinct used by Attila. He manages to find someone. Almost takes on us. Look at him go! Attila does it.
GG.
Upset. Never trash talk me again, you little... That's what you are, Upset. You little...
You wanted to go max or?
Yes, please put that on mic check.
I wonder why
know
we had
about
to
that
mute
one.
a little bit there. I'm sure he said something nice.
Wait, Dad?
He said secret draft strategies.
Yeah.
Secret draft
He was communicating to Yamato.
All right, strong words.
We don't know what he said.
I really wish we owned the license to the Benny Hill music for that first half of the play.
Oh.
Condolences to Schalke. That was a rough one. But let's take a look at the action we've got coming up next Friday, starting with a big matchup between Schalke and G2. Now, I'm excited for next week. There's a lot of cool matchups coming in. Ones that I'm excited to see. Schalke G2 is obviously a very premier one now that G2 have lost a game.
I like that
Schalke
one.
did get blitzed today. Fnatic Origin is hype. SK missed. Actually, every matchup is pretty hype.
Wait, what we do
LEC is hype.
is...
LEC,
okay.
thank you. There you go.
What we do is we make you guys vote. So do your quick predictions, run it down.
Ooh, quickfire. Classic.
G2,
G2?
Rogue,
Rogue,
Vitality,
SK, Origin.
Nice. You guys are on synergy.
Definitely agree. I think the most likely game for us to be,
Wait,
to get wrong would be the XL Rogue one.
okay. Now look directly into your single and say to Vedius, SK are better than Misfits.
SK are better than Misfits. Wasn't he the only
personal.
one who voted for SK to beat Fnatic?
Yeah, it's true, but this is more about the early season predictions where Vedius hard flame frost.
Oh, right, because you
gotta
had Misfits
understand-
down.
Yeah, you gotta
at the
understand. It
bottom.
was very,
Yeah.
there's a lot of very personal attacks today. You saw Attila into upset. That felt very personal.
You need
There's
to
a lot
say
of,
something and then stop and then say something like we're muting you.
Okay,
Captain the
perfect.
Nemesis is
Like,
personal.
Give my
Yeah.
secret
Just move your
strats.
mouth and we'll just pretend like we've muted you and you're saying some horrible trash talk. Well,
By the way, the schedule is hype because we have 8 teams fighting for playoffs. That's insane.
it's nice. Have you considered becoming a caster with storylines like that?
I'd rather, just feed them to you guys. I have a great storyline.
What is it?
Origin Super Team.
Okay.
I haven't heard it yet. I feel
need
like
to
it's
take notes.
time. It must be time.
All right, I think people might be tired of hearing about super teams, but across the Atlantic, the action in the LCS is starting with TSM versus Optic Gaming right after their pre-show. Quick fire. Don't know how much LCS you're watching. Team Liquid at the top. Anyone that can beat Team Liquid. They're the G2 of NA.
Nope.
It was C9 before, but they took they pulled a G2. They just grabbed Jensen.
That's all it takes.
It's true.
Yeah.
No, TL will 18-0 in ALCS.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's all I needed. Well, if you want to watch more from the LEC, we're going to have a rebroadcast of today's action after the show in Los Angeles. But that was all from us here in Week 5. Thank you, and join us next Friday for more action in the LEC Spring Split. Have a wonderful night.
Hello everybody, I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, and returning to the European caster desk, it is my pleasure to reintroduce Christy Ender Friesen.
I told you.
Okay, lock it in. Instantly. Lock that shit in. Okay, we got Urgot open, we got Jace open.
Helisang is blown up! It's a 5v4 and Reckless has been snatching.
No.
The Reckless begins to juggle. Good night, Reckless! The Nexus is being focused. The game's not over yet. And Fnatic, they've defended it. The minions are in there. We need to see the game. The Nexus is finally down. And SK Gaming have won.
Can I play with the client in Korean?
You can. Yeah, can I get a tissue? I just spilled some water.
Okay, bro.
Kobe escapes with his life. The flash keeps him up. Now Chachi's charging onto special. Cagel's going to go down shortly. He's running for his life. That's a flash forward from Chachi. Spice have found the fight they needed to shut down Exile, and they will be turning onto the base. Sanguine Pool will buy some time as Shizuke is getting burned. Abatage manages to pick up the kill. There's only a second one on the card. Mowgli goes down. Golden Aegis buys a few more seconds. Mowgli throws it back around. That's a double kill secured. 2 for Vitality. Shizuke uses the Sanguine Pool. Look at Attila goes jumping into the back line. He gets upset. He gets the ace. Vitality are taking down Shulker.
Upset. Never trash talk me again.
Here's the ultimate going up behind the tower, forcing away Hans Summer. Finn on the chase there. The Valkyrie comes out as well. The package locks up Hans Summer, and Rogue come knocking with the Pantheon pick. Rogue take their first win of the LEC.
I talked about how Afari should have pressure. Ooh, how we have the flash in.
Caps doesn't have the 6. So much damage. Caps is dead. And now Mickey steps forward, but the ultimate dodges away from it. The death mark. Nuke dodging that. Back. He's out of there. He's gone. Out are G2's hopes of winning this game. Cold goes unstoppable. Origin on the cusp of history as they take down the undefeated. Origin will defeat G2.